Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's time again for I Didn't Sign Up for This. Carrie, what did we not sign up for this time?
Well, Tim, we didn't sign up for handling change very well.
Okay, all right.
I want to talk about change tonight because I have a client that I've been working with that is in a relationship and she does not want to stay in that relationship. But because she's in it and because it would require change, she's avoiding happiness. She's avoiding making that move. And then I have another client who really wants to be in a different job, but is struggling with the unknown and struggling with the change and the movement of going into a different job. And so I've been thinking a lot about this and why, as a society or holistically in business or in our personal lives, why we resist change. So I think it's something that we really need to talk about. I started doing a little research and you wouldn't believe the amount of articles and books and published everything that is on change management, both from a business perspective and from a personal perspective. Now, you and I both know that in order to go for what you want or recreate your life, it requires ultimate change. So why do we struggle as people in society with change?
Because the status quo is a known element. It's a known component. You know, it's the old adage, better the enemy that I know than whatever I don't. I'm sure I just butchered that quote, but you know what I'm saying, right?
I do. I absolutely do.
People are crazy.
Yes. Well, and I will tell you that I struggle with change as well. So I'm not removing myself from that group. I like the norm. I like things a certain way. But I will tell you that, and here's where I have a little bit of a conflict with who I am as a person. Okay, you ready? I am afraid of change. I don't like it as much as I wish I did. But without change, there comes an overwhelming sense of boredom in my life. So if things don't change enough for me, I become complacent. I'm bored with it. I need to shake it up. I need to move things around. It's funny because I grew up with my mom, who I love more than anything in this world. That woman would rearrange furniture as often as maybe once a quarter. So every 3 months, we'd rearrange furniture. And she just liked it a certain way. To this day, every time I go to her house, her furniture is rearranged. And that's her way of executing change in her own life.
Okay, so wait a minute. So when I was down at your place the other day and all the furniture was different, was that what that was?
Yes, sir. It sure was. It sure was. So
So she comes in to visit and rearranges your furniture.
She said, honey, I really like the living room the way you had it before Christmas. Let's put it back that way. I'm like, okay, Mama, let's do it.
Fantastic.
And it didn't stop there. I mean, I remodeled an entire extra room in my house while she was here and have this fantastic, meditation room where I can go and decompress. That was absolutely part of her doing as well. And I didn't mind it at all. I didn't. It's exciting. It's thrilling to, go in and move stuff around or whatever. But yes, absolutely. When you were here the other day, my furniture in my living room is moved around because of Mama. Mama came to town. So, and I'm sure when I go to visit her in July, her living room will not look the way it does today. Change is inevitable. We can't control the change that comes into our lives, but yet everyone resists it. And it could be anything from a daily routine to job responsibility to divorce. I mean, I hate to say the D word, but ultimately, if what you're doing isn't working, why would you not get out of it?
Because it is working well enough that the fear of the unknown does not come into play. The only time most people actually change, I don't really count myself in this group of most people because I change a lot. So let's say completely mentally healthy people. the reason that y'all don't change is because change only comes when the pain of the status quo outweighs the fear of the unknown.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So really it's fear-based. So the inability to change, regardless of your state of happiness or your state of progression, if you are unwilling to change, ultimately it's fear-based. Because what if you trade what you have for something that you think is better and then it's a crapshoot?
That is correct.
Is that what we're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
It has to be so bad for most people that I would rather die than continue in this job or in this relationship or whatever. And then I'm comparing change and the fear of the unknown to death, and everything's better than death. And so people will push themselves to the point that they feel like they would rather die than go one more day sitting in that cube, or one more day hearing about the improper use of contractions from a spouse. When that gets so painful that you're not afraid of the change anymore, then you'll start doing it the right way. You'll change.
But don't you think there's a group of people out there that embrace change?
I think there are groups of people out there that embrace change. I count myself as one of those people, truth be told. Greater for me than the fear of change is the fear of complacency and boredom and routine.
Agreed. I am right there with you. And because I refuse to be bored. I cannot be bored. And if that means going and going and going and then finally taking a break or finally disconnecting, taking a breather, doing what I need to do to ground myself to make sure I'm ready to go again, and then I get out there and go again. Because life is exciting, and to embrace life and to explore and to live in a way that you never thought you could live before, that is fulfilling to me. But there's still that part of me that's like, ooh, that requires change. Oh my gosh. And I still have to do that self-talk.
Right.
But ultimately, every single time. And I guess that's where I'm brave. I mean, you know, there are probably a lot of opportunities that I have, but where I am brave is if you can get me to feel something and feel the why behind it. I am like a lawn dart. Throw me out there and I will land.
Throw me high as you can and I'll land every time.
Seriously, I have had more than one friend say, Carrie, you're like a lawn dart. Right. You just go. You just soar. And that's the truth. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, because sometimes I'll get up in the air and not even think about where I'm landing till it's heading right at me. And I'm like, oh, crap.
Right, right.
But I would much rather live my life like that and be that person as opposed to the person that is just bored in the same routine and the same freezer meal every night for dinner and blah, 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 blah. Like it's exhausting to think about no adventure, no spontaneity. That's why this is an important topic, because change is a good thing. It's absolutely good. If we had not experienced change up until now in our lives, would we be the people that we are?
Well, back up. If we hadn't experienced change in our lives as a culture, as a society, we'd still be in caves.
Right.
The problem is, in absence of change, there can be no creativity. And creativity is what creates progress.
Right.
And so we have to be willing and open to change in order to think creatively. Because otherwise, seriously, the cave is good enough. It keeps the rain off of our backs. There is seemingly an inexhaustible supply of woolly mammoths out there. Let's just keep doing exactly what we're doing. No reason to make things easier or more convenient or more comfortable, especially when we don't know exactly how we're going to do that or what we're going to do or the dangers involved. I mean, when we moved out of the caves into the huts down by the river, we had no idea if those little huts would protect us from the saber-toothed tigers. And so it was absolutely terrifying. It was a matter of life and death. But we took the risk, made the change, and brings us to where we are today.
Well, and that requires adaptability. So not only do you have to be okay with change, you have to be able to restructure yourself and rebuild yourself after change.
That's right.
I mean, I look at people who have been laid off from jobs, or I look at people who have just had enough and they come in that day. And I've seen this happen where they come in and they start their day, and about halfway through their day, I have actually had people that have reported to me at one point or another, just said, "Hey, Carrie, I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
Nice.
Here's my badge. I'm done." Well, what are you going to do? I don't know, but I can't do this. Okay, fair enough. You know what? Go live your dreams. And guess what? The majority of the people that have transitioned one way or another, whether it be voluntary or involuntary, they've never been destitute. They have made it work. And that's because of their adaptability to change.
So 2 points that come to mind. Number one, United States Marine Corps, improvise, adapt, and overcome. Oorah. Okay, now, because that's how it is. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. That is the credo. That's the motto. Having said that, you mentioned whether it was voluntary or involuntary. There is no involuntary in there 99% of the time or better. There's no involuntary. There's two types of people. The type of people who are willing to walk up to you, surprising you and going, "Here's my key, here's my badge. I need security to escort me out because I'm not doing this anymore, period." That person has the guts to call the ball themselves.
Right.
The other person, the so-called involuntary person, they lay little traps for themselves along the way, and they keep going and they keep going and they keep screwing it up until finally they get caught in one of their own traps. And guess what? Security is also escorting them out of the building. Both of those two people decided to move on. It's just one of them did it in a more forthright manner, and the other person was so afraid of the change that they created a world that they could not continue in.
So that's a good point, because I think that you're absolutely right. I've seen both sides of that story, and the majority of the people where I termed it involuntary, there were a lot of opportunities to turn it around prior to that happening. A lot.
Right.
And they didn't do it. So why didn't they do it? They didn't do it because they didn't want to face the change by themselves, or they just needed a reason.
Well, they didn't want responsibility for making the change. They wanted to tell themselves, maybe a spouse or significant other, maybe their parents, somebody who mattered to them in their lives, maybe themselves. They wanted to be able to honestly tell that person, "This choice was thrust upon me. I didn't willingly go in there and just quit my job. That would be irresponsible. That would look terrible on a resume."
I would never do that.
And so, of course, I would never do that. What I would do is just keep screwing it up over and over and over until finally they just couldn't take any more and they forced my hand and I was forced out of the company. That's what probably happens more often than not.
Interesting.
Because ultimately people don't want to take the responsibility of just saying, "Hey, this sucks." But that's a very limiting belief in and of itself, because it's really just a little bit sad that we feel like we have to follow the rules of the world or the rules of society, which are not written rules, they're implied. The implication is you can't go live in a van down by the river. You can't live in your little combi van on the California shore like those crazy dope-smoking hippies. You can't go surf every day. What on earth, man? What is wrong with you? You've got to get in line, do what all of us do, go to the cube day in, day out, get some insurance, get the health, get the dental, get the vision, get vested in your retirement plan or portfolio, and basically give your entire life to the system so that 30, 40 years from now, the system will give you a little bit back. Maybe.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
That's interesting.
And living with that limiting belief, living with that personally imposed constraint. Because here's the crazy part. All of those beliefs that you have about needing to go to that job are put on you by the example of others who are doing the same thing that you're doing, which is putting that pressure on themselves.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, if you were to not show up to your job tomorrow, who would miss you? Who would notice? You might get a couple of phone calls. Hey, what's going on? But if you just said, hey, look, I can't do it anymore, I'm out. Wow. That would make interesting water cooler talk for a day. And then a little bit the next day, day 3, you're pretty well forgotten about.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. It didn't work out for that person. That's the end of it. You don't realize how little people really care about your crap. They've got their own crap to deal with. They are inside their own heads, thinking about their crap 24/7. It's just absolutely insane. Here's a really good example in terms of how little people actually notice or actually care about what's going on with you in your life. People care about you in the abstract, right? I love you as my, insert relationship here, son, daughter, husband, wife, lover, child, whatever you want to say, right? And people do. When pressed and forced to think about it because you're in the hospital or whatever, then they realize really how much they love you. But that's just not the norm. Most of the time they are thinking about their own crap and how to solve their own problems and how to get to where they need to be. So here's my situation. I am, if you don't know, a middle-aged man. I mean, I'm sure you know. Okay, and so you've seen me.
You look fantastic. I don't know what you're talking about.
I look fantastic. Here's the problem. I do look fantastic, except for these 3 little words. For your age. F you, man!
Oh, cut a bitch!
F you! Honestly. Bite me for my age. Anyway, it is what it is, okay? So let me talk about some of the woes of middle-aged manhood. As you become a middle-aged man, your hair on top of your head starts to thin a little bit. Now, mine's still in pretty good shape, but it is noticeably thinner than what it was when I was not a middle-aged man. But to make up for it, your hair grows on other areas of your body much more rapidly, right? It's like, so the net accumulation of hair or the net allotment of hair remains the same. It just leaves the top and the back of your head, right? So pretty soon it's down your neck, it's up your back, it's on your ears. Your eyebrows are growing out like antennas to space. Man, they're just crazy. Okay, so because I have these eyebrows that are much like SETI, they're trying to make contact with alien life forms.
Oh, stop it. They're not that bad.
Well, of course they're not that bad. Here's the reason they're not that bad, though. They're not that bad because about once a week I take a trimmer with a number 1 comb, push it to the long number 1 comb, and I buzz the ends of those antennas off. Bzz, bzz. I buzz them off, right? Uh-huh. So I'm standing there in the mirror one day when I notice that my sideburns have grown longer than I usually let them grow, right? And I'm looking kind of like, I don't know, Casey and the Sunshine Band circa 73. And I'm like, what the hell, man? There's a lot of hair growing down the side of your face. You're going to have lamb chops. So I take the comb off. I line it up with where I like it on my ear, and with a straight trimmer, I just buzz that off. Go over to the other side, make sure it's lined up pretty well, buzz that off. I look left, I look right, it looks pretty even. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Okay, let's go ahead and do the eyebrows. Bzz, oh, crap, I forgot to put the comb back on. 1/2, 50% of my right eyebrow gone down to the skin. Gone. Just gone.
Oh, no.
So I look at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, batshit crazy. This man looks like he's lost his mind entirely. I've got clients. I've got appointments. I've got children. Do you know who noticed?
Who?
Nobody. Not a single person even noticed.
That's awesome.
Half my eyebrow was gone. Not a single person even noticed. And you know how you can tell when people look up at you and notice? They look up at you and kind of get this shocked look on their face, and then they can't look away from the crazy eyebrow thing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Clients, employees, children, people who you would think would notice something like this, not a bit.
Really?
I had no clue. It's kind of slowly recovered over the course of the next 5 days because my eyebrows grow like they're the Incredible Hulk, you know. Be something to do with, I'm on the wrong side of 40 or whatever, and you just kind of goes uphill to a certain point, and then you kind of slowly start coasting down. And so I've been coasting down for a while now. But yeah, nobody even noticed. Nobody even noticed. And it grew back very quickly, but nobody noticed I had shaved half my eyebrow off.
Well, and this makes me feel a lot better, and I'm sure that it will help all of our female listeners feel better, because as women, we put so much emphasis on our external beauty, and whether that's, from society or from our parents or from our peers or whatever that looks like. I will tell you that including myself, if I had shaved half my eyebrow off, I would probably call in sick to work or draw it on.
Right.
And
right.
And so it's nice to hear from a man's perspective that you guys work on that upkeep too, because we as women are constantly trying to look our best and dress our best and really do all those things.
You got to understand, I go 2 weeks and my eyebrows are sending secret messages to the Russians. It gets crazy. Nonetheless, most people, I don't know, if you're worried what other people think of you, you would be surprised to know how infrequently that happens. They're not thinking of you. They're thinking of themselves. They got their own crap to deal with. They don't notice your flaws. They don't notice your anything. And that's a little bit sad, but the world does not really revolve around any one of us ever. It just doesn't.
So there's freedom in that.
There's absolute, unabated freedom in that.
And that's comforting, because if you have the freedom to live your life the way that you really want to, and you know that people really are so self-involved or self-absorbed, or however you want to say it, or so worried about themselves and their projection onto society and their peers, really, you can live your life however you want.
Pretty much you can.
So why don't people get that?
Because they are, and I prefer the term self-involved more than self-absorbed, because self-absorbed sounds kind of negative.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
People have a lot of crap on their plate, and they're heavily involved with all the crap they have on their plate. And so we go through life thinking that the world revolves around us. Friedrich Nietzsche famously said, "We don't see the world as it is, but rather as we are."
I believe that.
Meaning we apply everything that we experience to our own lives. We take our experiences and shoehorn them into our moccasins, no matter what size the experience is. We make it about us. It's all we can do. And so we do.
So really, perception is reality. I mean, you hear that all the time. But your perception of the world becomes your reality.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So bringing that back into change, you have to, if your perception of the world becomes your reality and you want to make a change, you have to zero in and get clear on why you want to make that change, ultimately.
What the change is and exactly why you want to make it, yes.
Interesting. I agree. I think that the why behind it will trigger the emotional response that you need. Anytime that there's change, there are two responses. There's an emotional response where you will either embrace it or you will repel it. And then there's the logical response where that part of your mind goes, this is probably a good thing. And I think they go to battle. Anytime there's change, the logical and the emotional will fight it out. 9 times out of 10. You might have that 10th person that's like, yeah, I love change. Bring it on. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. But that's not the norm. That's the exception to the rule, right?
It is, but you got to understand that in a battle of logic versus emotion, You're talking like Mike Tyson in his prime versus maybe Richard Simmons, okay? Emotion will always win out. We don't do what we should do. We don't do what we need to do. We do what we want to do. We buy what we want. We use what we want. It all comes down to how we feel. In the world of trading, there are so many people out there who want to share their successes. And so they'll say, just trade without emotion. And that is absolutely impossible. We do absolutely nothing without emotion. Emotion is the core driver of absolutely everything you do. Nobody comes up to you and says, what's the logical choice for intake of calories at lunch today? They say, what do you feel like for lunch?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
It's all about how you feel. And you stop and you think. Now, logic is a very important part of that equation because logic supports the emotional decision you've made. But that's after the fact. And for the most part, it's just cognitive bias. Meaning we make a decision and then we look for reasons to support it, logical reasons to support it. I remember I had this friend, real quick story. I'm just the king of stories here. I had this friend, heavy on the word had, and you'll understand why at the end of the story. Oh, this guy's name was Bleep. And we were meeting for lunch one day. Me and about maybe 4 or 5 other guys were meeting for lunch and worked in a similar fields. And, so we're meeting for lunch and Bleep shows up in a brand new Corvette, just straight off the lot. Big V8, big 350, just a whole lot of engine and just a little bit of car. And all the other guys are talking about this car, talking about, man, that's just awesome. It's just fantastic. Man, you look good in that, Bleep. You look really good. Dang. And he gets a little bit agitated at us insisting that he looks pretty good in the car. And he said, well, it's not just about the way it looks, man. That's a very reliable car. It's crank and go. It's very, it's very safe. It's got airbags in the front and on the side and down the mirror and up the back. And you're basically encased in foam if you ever get in a fender bender in this thing. It's like it will protect your life and, the life of that one loved one you choose to take with you.
Nobody ever bought a Corvette for safety, but go on.
Okay. So he keeps going. Because obviously that language exists within him. He's afraid that he's made a relatively vain decision, which is exactly the decision he's made. He's made a vain decision. So what? Man, you're grown up. You can make the payments. Make a vain decision. Own it. Doesn't matter. So he keeps going. He's talking about how this engine can diagnose problems with itself before you even know there's a problem.
Oh.
Because the computer on board is so smart that it can just let you know what's going on. So every problem, you nip it in the bud. And he goes on. And finally, when he gets around to, something about gas mileage, when I just bust up laughing, right? I just had all I can take. The little snarky devil inside of me is just like begging to get out, right?
Uh-huh.
And so finally, when he starts talking about what good gas mileage this thing gets, then I chime in and said, yeah, I heard that. I read that this Corvette actually gets better gas mileage than 4 out of 5 Formula One race cars. Well, he didn't like that at all, right? He did not like that at all. And so he gets, he got pretty angry and swore he would never talk to me again because I'm going like, seriously, you bought a Corvette for gas mileage? Come on, dude. There is a reason when you go up to the Corvette dealership that they have a big, beautiful, enclosed, air-conditioned building with a couple of cars inside, but that's not the car that you're going to be driving. The car you're going to be driving is out on the lot. And there's also a reason that you don't walk with the salesman out to the back corner of the lot to get that Corvette. He goes to get it by himself, and he drives it up in front of the showroom. Now, why would he do that? Well, the answer is simple. If you look at the showroom, you'll notice that There are tinted windows. Now, you would think in a showroom, by virtue of the name showroom, you would want to be able to see what's inside on the other side of that glass. But not at the Corvette dealership, buddy, not at all. As a matter of fact, you stand there at the Corvette dealership and you have to cup the window with your hands to even see inside because there is a heavily reflective film on the glass. All you can see from the outside is you. The salesman goes and he gets the car, he brings it around, he parks it at a 45-degree angle, opposite that reflective glass, invites you to sit down in it where you can see virtually nothing but yourself sitting in the car. You literally see yourself sitting in the car. It is a vanity play.
Oh, that's funny.
And all car dealers do it. Of course you do it. I want you to literally see yourself sitting in the car and go, man, I look good. Look how good I look in this car. And I'm sure you do. Don't kid yourself, though. Bleep. All you just did was give me all the reasons, all of the logical support that you told your wife and, more importantly, your mother-in-law as to why you bought this car.
So ultimately, he's looking for forgiveness for a decision that made him happy. Like, he made that choice and made the sacrifice for those payments to be able to look good in that car, but is so afraid of the truth and being honest with himself that he'd rather talk about the safety features as a, please forgive me for my vain decision. When ultimately it's his decision, it's his choice.
Yeah, that's it.
Nobody should judge him for that.
And the choice can be a brand new Corvette that you go schlepping off to work in every day, or it can be a van down by the river. It can be a shack on the Sea of Cortez in Baja where the marlin fishing's really good. Nobody cares, man. Half your eyebrows gone. Nobody even notices.
But you notice, and you have to call
That's
out
right.
the issue.
That's exactly right. And that's what people do. That's what people do. You know, back before I started doing a little bit of the coaching thing, I worked as a still photographer. And almost without fail, people would come into my little studio. I would set them up with the lights and the table and the lenses and shoot a Polaroid to test it, show you how old I am, right? I actually would put a back on the camera and shoot a Polaroid, pull the Polaroid out, let it develop, look at it, and then we would expose film, real live Kodak acetate film, right? But without fail, people would look at me and say things like, well, I hope you can do something about this huge gap between my teeth. I hope you can do something about how my nose is scrunched, or this scar I got when I was 5 and fell in at the coffee table. Well, it's like, dude, I didn't even notice your scar or your nose, your teeth, your nothing. I never noticed any of it. But you obviously notice it, and you see it as a shortcoming in your appearance, in your own life. And I think we do that with virtually everything we have. I can't tell you how many people have come with more formal education than I have, more formal education than I want, to be quite frank, because I'm just not interested in formal education or third-party endorsement of any kind. But people would come in with considerably more education than I have, and the first thing they do is point out how they don't have this degree or that GPA or that anything in a job interview. Like I'm going to have any clue. Like I'm going to call your hometown college and get your transcripts. Dude, I don't know. I don't care. I just want to know that you can do the job. But people will absolutely point it out and apologize for it because it bothers them. They see it as a shortcoming. If you see it as a shortcoming, it is a shortcoming.
So are we basically saying that you need to increase your confidence in order to embrace the change that life brings you?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it boils down to. I have a story. You ready for my story? This happened today, actually. Somebody that I'm working with, that I work with, and that I'm pretty close to. We have a lot of good conversations. Well, I have been busting my butt to get in shape, and it's a lot harder in your 40s than it was in your 20s or 30s. And I was talking to him today and I was like, yeah, can you tell? And he's like, of course I can tell, you look great. And I'm like, well, why didn't you say anything? And he said, Carrie, he was like, you don't say that kind of stuff to women. Well, hell yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. If you can see something, if I'm working on it and you can see it, say it to me. And we started talking about confidence because I am a very confident woman. I am confident in the fact that I'm intelligent, that I'm kind, that I'm considerate, and that I'm fairly attractive for my age. No.
Nice
I just had to throw that in there. But
Nice.
but ultimately people's perception of me does not affect me. And it took a lot of life and a lot of experiences, good and bad, whatever, to get me to that point. And so my assumption is that because I am there, other people are there. And so, but he and I had this conversation. He was like, as men, we are absolutely trained not to go there with women. Now that is sad to me because I love me some recognition. I just am recognition driven all the way. Money's a close second. I think we've talked about this before. I need to get paid for what I'm doing, but I am recognition driven. So if I am working my butt off and I can see the results and nobody's giving me that reinforcement, I start to go, am I seeing this or not? But ultimately, it's a recognition thing, and I love that. And he and I laughed it off, and he's a really good guy, and we have a lot of really good talks. And so, but he was like, of course I can tell. And I was like, then tell me. But it was interesting to me that he said, we as men are trained not to go there with women. So if I'm making a positive change in my physical appearance, then that means that the men in my life are trained not to say anything for fear they're going to ping some insecurity with me or any woman. And that's unfortunate because nobody should dictate the self-confidence that you have. And if they impact your self-confidence, you need to tell them bye-bye. You need to close the door on them because it's not healthy. It's not something that you will benefit from. But I just found that very interesting. And so confidence is the key to so many things, because if you don't believe in yourself, you can't even think about making a change because you don't think you'll get there. So good. That's a really good tie-in for self-belief.
Right. I mean, you do. You absolutely have to have confidence in your ability to navigate the unknown, to navigate the future. And if you don't have that confidence, then the status quo looks pretty good.
That's sad to me. It's sad to me, but that's also why I'm in the profession that I'm in, and we're moving in the direction that we are. So there are so many beautiful experiences in life that if we would just allow ourselves to have them and allow ourselves to say, it's okay to make choices and decisions that will help me grow, you will have a fulfilling life every day. Every day, Tim. And it just, how do we get people to see that? How do we get them there? How do we get them to understand that they need to see the why behind the change that they need to make and be honest with themselves about how important it is? Yes, you're going to have roadblocks. Oh my gosh, you're going to have so many obstacles. You're going to want to eat a taco instead of have a protein shake. Trust me, I'm going through it right now myself. Tacos are delicious. But I want the protein shake and that's for me.
Sure.
That's not for anybody in my life. I don't have anybody to please. I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
Right.
And if we could get everybody to that point. Now, as a warning or as something that we want to heed, you don't want to lose compassion as you gain confidence, because the empathy and the compassion that we feel keeps us connected to everyone around us and allows for a true joy that supersedes a superficial joy, if that makes sense. But confidence for yourself, if you're not confident, I am a very confident woman. So when I'm in a relationship with somebody, they get the full me. They don't get a version of me that maybe pleases them because I'm too afraid to show them who I am. What you see is what you get. And if we lived in a society where everybody adhered to that, there'd be a lot more happiness and a lot more goal achievement, and then we wouldn't be so afraid of change. I think it's interesting, but there is always something that you have to exchange. So with change, if I'm holding a ball and I want a bigger ball, then I know that I have to set down the ball that I'm holding to get the bigger ball. Right? There's no denying that. So I have to be able to say, okay, what I have now is okay, but I want something better. And so I'm going to put down what I have now and go for something better. Fear, no fear.
But can't I just hold on to what I have and drop it at the last minute?
No, you can't. No, drop the ball, Tim. Drop it. No, you can't. And the reason that you can't is because if you're holding on to it, how are you going to grab anything else? You have to take that leap of faith. You have to have a vision, and that vision has to be the ability to see where you can land after that leap of faith. Like, I'm not going to go rock climbing and then all of a sudden jump off a cliff thinking, well, there's probably a trampoline down there, or, a body of water and I'll be cool, then I'm cliff diving. It's not like that. You have to be able to say, what I have today isn't working. And in order for me to have something better, I have to let go of the part that isn't working. And it's hard. It's so hard to let go of what we know or the potential of what we have to embrace the potential of what we don't know yet. But if you don't, then you're complacent and you're bored and you're not living.
Yeah, or maybe you're poor, or maybe you're lonely, ultimately people have to find their own happiness. I'm just a firm believer that until you want to change more than you are afraid of change, you won't do it.
I agree.
Basically, as I said before, staying here equals death. Anything's better than death, so I will take a chance.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me put it this way. There have been billions of people on this planet that have lived throughout the time that we have been on this planet, that have been afraid of change and decided to just go with what was comfortable. Can you name any of those people?
No. There ain't no Nobel Prizes for playing well with others. Right?
That's my point.
Nobel Prize because he really got along well. No, that doesn't exist.
So there you go. I mean, what about the people who embrace change, who lived beyond their who lived beyond their boundaries and said, I am going to rewrite my own history by taking action today. So I can be born, I can live my life, I can die, and I can be complacent, or I can grab life by the balls and say, who owns you now? That's what I want.
The thing is, you don't even really have to take over. You look at Henry David Thoreau, quits his job, moves out, builds a little cabin in the woods, and lives there, right?
Yeah.
Keeps a journal while he's there, publishes his thought about it, and now he's a household name. And so it's just daring to actually be different, daring to experience, having the confidence to know that you will just be okay. Nothing you do really matters, but it's important that you do it. I didn't come up with that. That was a Gandhiism, but nonetheless, it's very true. What you do doesn't matter nearly as much as the fact that you just get out there and do it with integrity and with intention. Most of us don't, though. Most of us kind of sit back and say, hey, I'll go to work and sit in my cube and come home at night, maybe go to a kid's ball game once a week, and eventually something will change. And if you're happy there, stay there. It's awesome.
Right. I think that's the point. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you're doing what is fulfilling to you. And, I have a lot of friends who are completely happy with their jobs and their lives and their families. And that's good. That's so good for them. And then there are people who I know that have made a lot of money in their lifetime and are still searching for more because somehow money comes and goes. It's easy to make money. It's easy to make friends. It's very easy to live the norm. And if the norm is what you want, then go for it. If you want that 9-to-5 job with a couple weeks of vacation every year and the benefits, and absolutely. So there is no guideline. Like, I'm not saying everybody should go out and run for president or sail the ocean, or, travel the world or whatever. But ultimately it's creating an authentic version of yourself. And living your dreams. So whatever your dreams are, if I wanted to be an opera singer, I mean, it would be living that. If you are complacent, that is the enemy to change. You don't want to embrace change because you are complacent.
It's the story of Tahiti that I told a while back. Complacent, contented people never move. We never move. We never make a change. We never make a difference. And so you have people that will become disenchanted with that complacency and make a move, and you have other people that will create something that will force them to make a move. But eventually everybody moves. Change happens. There's no avoiding it. The only thing that you can change is how you respond to it. You're not going to change the wind, but man, you can always trim the sails.
Well, and sometimes it boils down to timing, and timing is everything. And you have to be in a position where you can structure the change or structure your adaptation to change in a way that you can handle, right? Nobody's gonna create, like, I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, change is amazing. It's my favorite thing ever. That and flying, whatever.
Right.
So you have to be able to adapt. And, I think part of the issues that I have seen quite often with people is when it is bad timing, trying to force a change that just is a waste of time. Right. So that's the opposite of change happening to you, is when you're trying to orchestrate a change and ultimately it's bad timing. Maybe the players are wrong, or the timing, or the job move, or whatever that looks like. But there is a little bit of faith that has to come in to everything we do. And you have to believe when those things come up and it's poor timing, or it's just not the right move. That's okay. Redirects are okay. We've talked about detours and we've talked about all of those different things, and they go hand in hand. You have to be accommodating to the changes that you can't control, but methodical with the changes that you can initiate. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not 100% sure. I wholeheartedly agree, because I have found in my own personal experience that there is never any good timing for anything ever. I mean, once in a while, something just drops in your lap, I guess. I don't want to speak about it in absolute terms, because I never, ever, ever talk in absolute terms. Anyway, my experience has shown that there's rarely, if ever, is there a good timing for anything. And at the same time, my experience has proven to me that, I don't know, call it God Almighty or the universe or fate or whatever you want to call it, but whatever power or person or deity runs this whole show, that person loves audacity. That entity just absolutely loves audacity. Yeah. When you stand up and say, that's what I want, that's what I'm going for, I'm going to have it. And all of you can point and laugh if I don't get it, but I'm going. The person who makes that level of audacious, intended commitment accomplishes the thing that they're looking for. And it goes back to the notion of shoot for the moon and fall to the stars, or what have you, right? Don't shoot for the roof and fall on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so true.
That's where we make the mistake. We want to dream little dreams. We want to play small. I want to be hugely famous and successful and wildly wealthy and whatever, but not if it hurts anybody's feelings, right? We live in this world where somehow it is a crime to make someone else feel bad. When the fact of the matter is, most other people who are feeling bad by virtue of their own poor decisions or laziness or lack of integrity or just lack of nerve. And guess what? If you have no nerve and no integrity, you deserve to feel bad. God made it that way for a reason. If you are not going to stand up and announce to the world that thing that you want and then go proceed to get it, then you deserve to feel bad.
I agree with you. I also think that comes down to intention. So I remember when I bought my little ranch that I have out in the desert. So I moved from Gilbert, and Gilbert is awesome. Gilbert, Arizona, great little town, has everything. It's close to everything. There's shopping. There's all of these different things. And I remember when I went through the buying process of this little ranch, 40 minutes south of Chandler, Arizona, so about 45, 50 minutes away from Gilbert, in this little town, Casa Grande, and I'm actually on the outskirts, so I literally am in the desert. I have no neighbors to one side of me and no neighbors in the entire front. It's just pure desert, mesquite trees, whatever. I remember when I told people that I was going through purchasing this cute little ranch, it was almost like I had to tell them in a way to ask their forgiveness for moving so far out of the city. They could not understand my choice. And a couple of them really had issues with it. I had two people that are pretty good friends say, "Why would you want to move out there? I'm never going to make it out there to see you." Okay, well, that's all right. We'll still be friends, like nothing personal. But this little ranch that I live on gives me more peace and more space for creativity than I would have ever had in a subdivision in Gilbert, Arizona. And for me, that was the right choice. But yet, when I was trying to explain, I seriously had people say, "Why in the world would you want to move all the way out there?" Because it's a beautiful location, and I love having a place that I can anchor myself and ground myself and be creative and do all these amazing things and not have, I own my little dirt road that my ranch is on,
Right.
And to me, that's great for me. Now, somebody who thrives in a metropolitan area, good for them, complete opposite. But that's my choice. And I went for it, and I made that change. And of course, I had to make accommodations. There isn't a lot of the conveniences here that are in Phoenix or in Gilbert or in some of those, larger areas, but I'm doing just fine. I think it's interesting. I shouldn't have to ask for forgiveness because I made a decision of where I'm happy or where I want to live, just like no one else would need to. So I think sometimes when we have a perception of what is the best for us, we project that perception onto other people, and then we ask them to say they're sorry for not having the same belief system.
Right. And ultimately, I think that's just a product of the fear that maybe they're right exists within you. Otherwise, you don't give a second thought to needing their permission for anything.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So there is this fear that exists within us where we say, God, maybe they're right. It's a long way out of town. Maybe I'll never have friends again. Maybe I'll never whatever. And if the fear of that being true did not exist within you, the notion of their permission wouldn't even cross your mind.
Right. That's true. So once you make a decision that you're going to go for, you have to put the confidence behind it.
Yeah. Root out all doubt. Doubt is just like the weeds of the soul. Rip them out by the roots. You don't need doubt. It's not going to help you. It can only hurt you. It can only have you second guessing and regretting something that happened in the past. No, you make a decision, you look forward, you cut off all other options, and you plow forward absolutely with full speed ahead and complete intent to succeed at whatever it is you're pursuing. Ranch in the Desert, best-selling book, $1 million, love of your life, whatever. Doesn't matter. If you screw it up, and oftentimes you will, you live with the consequences. Yep, that was me standing on the table with my shirt off, swinging it around in my hand, saying, you watch me, I'm going to do blank. Hell yeah, that was me. Whoa, you still got that cell phone video? Yeah, well, you keep watching that because I'm not done. Absolute confidence, even if you fake it till you make it. Don't entertain the weeds of the soul. We don't need weeds in our soul.
Well, and I think that there's a valuable point there because let's go worst case scenario. You are confident and you decide that you're going to do something and it's breathtaking and you dive in head first and you fail. Guess what you walk away with at the end of the day? Experience. Experience. That's right. So that you can get up, brush yourself off, and get back in the ring and start fighting again. But you're smarter, your precision is greater, and your outcome is going to be more successful than it was the first time. So you can't be afraid of failure. Yes, you have to be confident and you have to go for it, but you have to release the fear of change and the fear of failure and get your ass to work and understand that if something happens and you fall down, as long as you're living and breathing, you get to pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and get back in the ring.
Yep, that's little Tommy Edison's line, wherein he said, I never failed. I successfully found 10,000 ways to not build a light bulb that works. I eliminated 10,000 problems with the light bulb. And then I found one that did work. And that's the one we use today.
Right.
All right. Excellent.
Okay. Good stuff. Good talk. I could go on about failure and confidence and fear and change, but I think we've hit our max for tonight. So we'll be back in a couple of days with more deep thoughts.
We're so profound.
We're amazing.
We are. We are. All right. Anyway, all of that aside, if you're kind enough to listen to us babbling on about these deep and meaningful things, we sincerely hope you've enjoyed it. We sincerely hope that you will like, comment, subscribe, and all those other social media cliches. But at very least, check us again a couple of days because we're going to be back here with more profundities. I like that word.
Ooh, impressive.
You know. Until then, dream your life.
And live your dreams.
There you go, baby. All right, talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.